Welcome to Energy Medicine to Navigate Personal and Global Change. I'm Ellen Meredith. I'm an energy medicine teacher and practitioner, and I was originally trained by my inner teachers, my guides, so I have a lot of influence that you'll hear as I talk today. How many of you lately have felt changes rising within you, or maybe change has been slamming at you from the world around? Or like me, you feel like you're at the mercy of a whole lot of really grumpy and disgruntled people who are acting out and objecting to how systems are managed. Well, welcome to the 2020s, right? Change is our new normal. And according to my inner teachers, it's likely to continue for some time. So here's a question for you. With so much change, inner and outer, how can we build resilience? How can we find security? How can we heal what's getting triggered for us in our emotions or in our physical bodies and health, or in our outer world of work and relationships and shared culture? Now, I know, because I'm talking to the Theosophical Society, that many of you have been seekers for years, and you've probably have some spiritual practices like yoga or meditation that can help you ground and center. I have heard from a lot of folks lately that their longtime practices aren't working as well as they used to. So if that's true for you, don't worry. But it's good to have them. I think these can definitely support us to build resilience and operate more from the inside out. But what I'd like to explore with you today is a real shift in how you can participate moment by moment in the operations of your body, your mind, and your spirit as they come together to create you. Now, just under the surface of our awareness, the body, the mind, and the spirit are constantly communicating. They're enacting the work of the body, they're expressing the intentions of our minds, and they're fulfilling the purpose of our wiser self. But most of us can't really participate in these communications because we haven't learned to speak the language that our body speaks, which is energy, or you might call it subtle energy. Most of us believe by now that this is, even though it looks solid, this is energy. We're made of energy. And we're also fueled by energy. And it's energy that the body, mind, and spirit use in their communications, as I said, to conduct their business. So if I can't understand this language, if I can't speak this language, then I can't have real input or dialogue with the process. And I'm at the mercy of whatever got programmed into me by others. So lots of us find ourselves trying to manage an instrument we don't really know how to play. When I was growing up, I used to complain all the time. I used to say, "Where's the user's manual on this thing? I don't know why it's doing what it's doing. Why am I having these outbreaks of this, that, and the other?" And I didn't understand it. And nothing I learned in my everyday exposure to culture really felt satisfactory or felt true. And so if we don't have the language, if we can't speak it, we're likely to spend most of our energy fighting change or repairing damage or healing brokenness, rather than being able to work proactively with our energies to create our own best expression of self. So this is the question I want to explore today. What does it take to learn to speak the language your body speaks? And more specifically, to speak this subtle energy. And I know this was billed in some places as a lecture or a webinar, and it is, but it's going to include some participatory exploration. Now, if you're driving, don't participate now, listen again later and do it. But if you're somewhere where you can pay attention, put aside whatever you're multitasking on, and really try this stuff out. I think we always learn better when we try the information on for size. We see how it works for us, for our bodies, for our truth, our reality. So that's your invitation to participate. So our bodies are actually bilingual, right? They do speak energy, as I've said, and they also speak chemistry. And chemistry is what conventional medicine tends to emphasize, right? You go to a doctor and she tests your blood chemistry to see what's going on. And then usually the doctor will respond with chemical inputs. They give you medications. They sometimes give you nutritional inputs, but it's all chemistry to talk to your chemistry. And that's not something most of us can participate in. Even someone who's a PhD chemist or nutritionist can't always figure out how to get it right moment by moment. It's not very effective as a language, not as an everyday transactional language, because it's too imprecise. If you take a pill at 10 o'clock in the morning because you need the message that that pill contains, your body says, oh, okay, and starts to respond. But at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that pill is still shouting chemically at your body, and your body's going, oh no, I heard it, shut up. And we have a lot of side effects from the chemical communications because it just really isn't adequate for the everyday communications we need. Now, that's not to say that it's not a wonderful blessing when you really need some help that it can bring. So I'm not saying never use chemistry, but it certainly behooves us to learn this other language. I sort of feel like trying to use chemistry to balance myself is like someone going online to send a message to their partner. It's too generic. It's not personalized enough. We need that privacy of that back and forth with our own self. Now, under the chemistry, under all the chemical communications in the body, are energetic communications. And this isn't out there woo-woo weirdo stuff. I mean, we all know that the brain sends electrical signals, that the spine sends out electrical signals, that there's electromagnetic fields that we can measure using MRIs and other things. So this isn't too big a leap to say, wow, energy underlies the chemistry and it can influence it. And your energy, what you do to work with your energy can influence your chemistry in a way that taking a pill or using medication to influence your chemistry doesn't necessarily get your energies balanced. And that's sometimes why we take pills, we get better, we stop taking the pills, and we either get the same problem back or a different problem because we haven't really addressed the underlying communication issues that are going on where the body's trying to talk to us. Okay, so this is all my argument for why I think it's really worthwhile to learn the language of energy. And it's not a foreign language, okay? This isn't something out there that you now have to start memorizing. It's our mother tongue. Most of us knew it, if you believe in this, as souls that were incarnating. We knew it when we were in our spirit form. And we learned it as infants. We used our growing understanding of energy to transact the world until we became verbal and became more cognitive. And at that point, society basically taught us to ignore a lot of our creature communications and use language and the thinking brain. So because we've been socialized to ignore it, a lot of us think, oh, we can't do that. We can't speak energy. And so part of learning to speak energy is actually learning to remember that we can speak energy and that we do it all the time. So we're becoming aware of what we're doing that's just under the surface of our awareness. So it's a little easier than it might sound, those of you who don't like to learn languages. So I mentioned before that your body, mind, and spirit are in ongoing conversations. And in any conversation, it's good to know who's talking, right? Who's doing the talking here? Now, in our culture, we have a real separation. I say our culture, many of you have subcultures that are different, but in our generalized shared culture, we separate. The body is one thing. If our body gets sick, we go to a medical doctor. If our mind gets sick, we go to a psychologist. If our spirit gets sick, maybe we go to a pastor of some sort. It's separated. It's fragmented. And even within those, if you have something wrong with your lungs, you get sent to a lung doctor who doesn't necessarily ask what's the interplay between your heart and lungs. And so we don't in our shared consciousness, really have enough recognition of the interconnections between the realms, particularly of body, mind, spirit. I believe that a better framework to use than the body, the mind, the spirit, is to see them as three places or densities on the same spectrum. In other words, here is your soul, body, mind, the whole spectrum of self. And over here, your body is maybe the densest part of that energy spectrum. And your mind is less dense as part of the energy spectrum. And your spirit is even less dense than that as this spectrum. And so when we're working with our energies, we can work pretty much anywhere along that spectrum to influence our whole self. But I want to talk a little about, on the Who's Talking, three particular stations. So what we call the body, my teachers always referred to it as the earth elemental self. It's actually a consciousness. It has its own consciousness, the earth elemental self, or portion of consciousness. And it's our creature self. It's like a dog or a cat. This earth elemental that you have has instincts. It has connections with all life forms. It has the ability to have herd consciousness or swarm consciousness, to really feel into what's happening with the other earth elementals around it, including the plants and the animals and the other life forms, not just humans. So that's your earth elemental self over here on your spectrum. Here in the middle, the mind area, they call your talking self, they being my teachers, call your talking self. Now, your talking self is the part of you that creates an identity, that makes dramas, right? That talks. And it creates thought forms, and it has emotions, it creates those. And it's writing storylines, the story of your life that you are authoring, that you create not just for your own life to frame it or shape it, but to help co-create the shared world that we live in. And how many of us get overwhelmed by these narratives coming at us, especially in the news lately? Oh my God, so many toxic narratives flying at us. And we're overwhelmed with them in part because we aren't quite stepping into our agency, into our authorship of our talking self, saying, well, wait, I get to write my part of the story, and let me be a little more conscious about what I want to be writing into this shared story. I don't want to keep taking in these negative narratives that sell commercials on news programs. I really want to be an author here. That's part of the job of talking self. And then you get to your wiser self, the other end of the spectrum where you can work with energy. And the wiser self is kind of like spirit or soul, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to get too technical because we don't really need to chop ourselves into lots of little subcategories. But at this end of the wiser self that's less dense, we have the drumbeat of our purpose. We have meaning. We have wisdom coming into us and enlightening us. And we have our connection to all that is in the universe. And this is a dimension where we're also collective. So it's interesting because each of these three dimensions of self have a different kind of collective. Your earth elemental self is collective with other creatures. Your talking self is collective with the other authors writing their stories. And the wiser self is collective in knowing from the spiritual dimension what all is happening in this larger universe. And so we are amazing. I mean, we're more than just this thing here, and we're more than what science has been able to characterize. We're just amazing. Even literature and art, which tries, maybe, I think, harder to understand the amazingness, and spirituality, they try so hard to understand this amazing creature, this amazing spectrum of being that we are. I think even they don't know it all. So what's great is we get a lifetime here to explore this committee of three and help them to integrate, to work together, to embody the spirit, to inspirit the body, and to animate the mind with both grounding and illumination from spirit. I think it's just an amazing system that we have, that we're operating here. And they're not separate. So often we can influence one by the other. What I want to say, though, is too many of us who are spiritual seekers, we try to change our life by changing our mental frameworks or through spiritual practice. And those are fabulous. But in my experience, and I've worked almost 40 years as a healer, the body doesn't always get the memo. So I get these people who are fabulous practitioners, and yet their body has come up with a cancer that's a pretty loud shout to say, hey, pay attention. And they don't have that end of the communication as they don't understand it as thoroughly as they do the spiritual or the intellectual stuff. So if that's you, if you tend to like to live in your head or in your spiritual practice, just invite yourself to also get some body-based communication going that you can play with. And I'm going to show you how to do some of that today. Each of these three selves communicates a little differently energetically, and you probably know this already, but I think it's helpful to spell it out. So how does your body or earth elemental communicate with you or with the world? Well, by way of symptoms, right? We get sensations, maybe something's tight, maybe something hurts, maybe something gets blocked. By actions, things don't move that need to move, or we trip and fall, or, all kinds of actions that come up. We're all jittery like this, and we say, oh, something's going on. We have immune reactions that are all about telling us what's safe and isn't safe, what can come in, what needs to stay out. And the body also communicates by what it will fuel and what it won't. Those days when you have these ideas, these grand ideas about what you want to do, and you have no energy to do it, your body just says, sorry, we're going to take a nap instead. Okay, that's all earth elemental. Now, the talking self, how does that communicate? Often through thoughts. Thoughts come into your head, or feelings, including all kinds of emotions and perspectives. We sort of see things a certain way, attitudes, beliefs. It also can work through attraction and aversion. What am I pulled towards? What do I reject? And that's something to watch, because it's communications of the talking self. And all kinds of reactivities of emotion and thought. And then your spirit or wiser self, how does that communicate? Well, that tends to use the vocabulary of what I call yearning. What am I drawn to? What do I want? What feels fulfilling? It will often come up as radiance. This really turns me on and I feel really animated. That's a signal that my spirit is saying, yes, do this. And when I'm deflated, there's often a spirit element saying, not your task in this lifetime, not your stuff. And wiser self also will communicate through awakening. One day you suddenly see things a different way, or a different kind of knowing. Sometimes it's direct knowing that comes in, and all of a sudden you just know in a really deep way, this is true. You can't prove it, but you know it. That's your wiser self talking to you. Sometimes it shifts the focus, puts something in focus, puts something out of focus. I'm just saying these so you can observe all the ways you are getting these communications that maybe you didn't realize you were speaking the language of energy. And I want to just say the language of energy is not a metaphor. I'm not speaking metaphorically here. I mean, we don't say, oh, chemistry, that's all a metaphor, because scientists have worked out that this, and this works like that, and that. We say, yeah, that's a real language of communication. The language of energy isn't a metaphor. It includes, like all languages, comprehension or receptive language, or perceiving energies, you might call it, and also expression or speaking energy to energy. So we're going to dive in today and explore both of these a little bit, and for the purpose of helping you maybe reacquaint yourself with this mother tongue and perhaps use it more effectively. So let's start with receptive language or perceiving energies, comprehension. Now, I want to say you don't have to be psychic to read energies or to perceive energies. That is a huge myth in our culture that only people who are psychically gifted can read the energies. And there's a lot of mystique built around it that's sometimes even used to oppress people. We all have this equipment built into us. All of us can perceive energies. You wouldn't be able to walk through a crowd without bumping into people if you weren't using your radar all the time. You wouldn't know what to put your attention on if you didn't have the capacity to notice what is, what's the field and what is the specific thing to focus on. So maybe learning what the equipment entails is useful in understanding that you do perceive energies all the time, and we can always get better at it. We can always improve and deepen our abilities. And people who are psychic sometimes have a highly tuned instrument for perceiving energetic communications, but you wouldn't be alive today if you weren't already doing it. We tend also, when I say the word energy, all of you have some kind of definition what we mean. A lot of us in our culture, this is kind of the passion right now, is to put everything in scientific terms. If it can't be defined and explained scientifically, it's not true enough. And I think that that waters down our reality. I think there's many different ways of knowing. I still love science. I think it's interesting. But if we want to talk about energy, I think it's useful to use all of your language and all of your experiences to characterize it. Science likes to distill things down to principles and behaviors, and something like art or literature or spirituality doesn't limit itself in those ways. And there's thousands of years of experience people have had, people who are spiritual, who are artists, even who are farmers, who've worked with energy, who've known it, and have ways to characterize it and communicate about it. And is that proof? Do we need proof? I mean, how many of you take those little white pills and believe they're going to help you? And you don't demand proof. I mean, maybe they've been studied, maybe they've been approved, they probably have been, but we find 5 years later, oh, whoops, they don't work after all. So it's not, again, to put down the science, but to say we have to expand into not just the science of life, but the artistry of life if we're really going to understand the user's manual that's built here into our bodies. Okay, because everything is energy, and we have lots and lots of ways to perceive it. And there's no one right way. So what works for you might not work for another person, and vice versa. So we're going to start with an exercise. It's participatory that I call speed dating your senses. Now, you may know what speed dating is. I think it was the 80s or 90s. It was all the rage where people who were single would go to these big rooms that had lots of little tables. And they would go to a table and they talk to someone for maybe 3 to 5 minutes, exchange information, and move on. And the purpose was to see who they wanted to get to know better, who they wanted to date. So that's speed dating. And I think it's useful to do a little speed dating with our senses. So that's what we're going to do. And when you go to each, we're going to go to each sense and visit it and have a little interaction with it. And while you're there, don't worry about what you get. This is not to save your life. This is just play. But you can either focus in on something small and local, or you can go bigger and sort of get overall impressions, whatever works for you. If you get nothing, play with the nothing. Sometimes the nothing is a message, just like sometimes silence says a lot, right? And then jot down, each time I'll give you just a moment to jot down what comes up for you. And then if you don't have enough time, if this is too fast for some of you, speed dating, you can get the recording and stop it at various points to take more time if you want. But the first sense that we're going to speed date is seeing. Now, you can see with your physical eyes, but you can also see with your mind's eye. When I say picture your mother, most of you can shut your eyes and picture the mother figure in your life. So we're going to explore either or both. You're going to take your hand and let your hand go somewhere on your body. Just be drawn somewhere. You don't have to overthink it. Just let it go where it wants to go. Mine went right to my solar plexus. Ask yourself, what do I see? For some of you, it works better to shut your eyes, but you can have them open or closed. What do I see? Now you might get an image, a color, a shape. And if you don't see anything, you can also try opening your eyes and see what your physical sight is drawn to in that moment. Now, there's no need to try to influence the communication in any way, just witness or notice. And now, ask this place in your body for a gift or offer a gift to this part of your body. And take a moment to jot down whatever you've noticed. Just a word here and there to jog your memory. Now I'm going to be like speed dating. I'm going to ring a bell. Time to move to the next table, which is hearing. Now we're going to again explore both your literal hearing and your inner hearing. You know, when you say, think of a song in your head, what do you hear? And it can come in terms of just pure sound. It can be a tune. It can be a rhythm. It can be spoken language, whatever, any form of sound. You're going to let your hand, again, go somewhere on your body. And this time, it could be the same place or a different place. This time you're going to ask an open-ended question. Give me insight into. So it could be, give me insight into what happened last night with my partner. Give me insight into what's going on with my liver. Give me insight into. Okay, so you're just going to fill in that blank. And tune in and see what you hear. Now, sometimes it's helpful to interview the sense like you would in a speed date. You can say, well, is this a loud sound or a quiet sound? Is it a flowing, what's the quality of it? Is it flowing or staccato or something in between? Does it please me or do I find it off-putting? What are my associations with what's arising? Now, ask this place in your body for a theme song, for a song, or offer a song to it. And then jot down whatever impressions you got from speed dating your hearing. Okay, we're going to speed date smell and taste. I put them together because they're often very linked. And again, it's your actual taste and smell or your inner taste and smell. We're going to play with this. You know how in the airport they have these sniffer dogs that they send to find the contraband? You're going to call up a sniffer dog and send it into your body to find where you've stashed something you need to pay attention to. You say, okay, Bowser, show me where I've put something I need to pay attention to. And then let your hand follow the dog and maybe put your hand on that part of your body if you can reach it. Otherwise, just tune in. And when you're there, check it out, but tune in particularly like the dog would by sniffing it, by smelling it or tasting it, and see what comes to you. Again, you can do literal smell or figurative. Don't get all thinky about this. This is more about noticing than it is about coming up with right answers and having your brain understand it. That's a later step. You can come back and analyze it later. Okay, just what comes up as a smell? What comes up as a taste? And then ask this part of yourself for a gift or offer a gift to it. And take a moment now to jot down what you notice. So now we're going to go and speed date the sense of touch or feeling, physical sensation. And of course, this can be both physical feelings and emotional feeling. So you're going to take your hands and scan your hands and tune into, you can use one hand if it's confusing to use two, tune in to where your hand feels a sensation. It feels something. And then place your hand there on your body and just listen to what is that sensation? What's arising? Now, your hands speak fluent energy. So you can let your hand have a little conversation or dialogue with this area of your body, or you can let it send a little healing in. Often we're drawn to something that needs to be brought back to wholeness, to have some healing. Okay, now take a moment. This is speed dating, remember, you can always come back. Take a moment to jot down whatever called your attention, where you landed, what you noticed, just a word or two for each. Now, in addition to our five senses that we agree on in our culture, we have a lot of extended senses that aren't as well acknowledged, but we use them all the time. One of them is what I call direct knowing. Your mind is a sense organ. It covers your whole body. It's not just sitting in your head, but your mind is a sense organ. And we often just receive sense signals or a thought, telepathy that tells us something that we need to know. So it's good to just practice using this sense, even though we don't cognitively recognize it as a sense. It is one. So again, we can play with it. Ask your hand or hands where they want to go on your body. And then open your mind and ask for a thought or a word or a message. Don't edit it. Just say, give me a thought, word, or message. Usually these messages are fairly quick and fairly simple or straightforward. A few words, a phrase, an image, a memory, something that you have a lot of association with or that you will get to unpack down the road. Anyway, thank your body for the message and jot it down. And the last sense that we're going to speed date today is what I call intuitive hits. This is the inner guidance system from each of our three selves. Most of them will register in the body. Sometimes they register in the mind. But I want to say a little that the guidance of Earth Elemental Self often comes through sensation. It's through a tug to do something. It's like a dog or cat who's in the perpetual now, right? Now I'm going to sit. Now I'm going to wag my tail. Now I'm going to lick the water. Now I'm going to lick you. Now I'm going to roll over. You know, that's the perpetual now. And our Earth Elemental has a little bit of that sense. So when we ask for guidance, we often get what's needed right now. Talking self-guidance is often comes through an insight or a thought, and it can often open up our thinking or take us in a new direction if we're listening for it. But it's hard to hear the guidance of talking self. You know, how do I know? How do I know if this is true? We don't, because we fill our brain with all these other thoughts and conditions that we've learned, and it's a very crowded place. So that's why I like to go into the body to get insight. But you can get guidance from your talking self. And we're going to experiment with that. And you can get guidance from your wiser self. That often feels like a shimmer or a vibrancy or something that just feels like more true than other stuff. It lights up for you. Okay, so we're going to play with it. You're going to put one hand on your heart, one hand on your solar plexus. Okay, and you're going to ask your body what do you need right now? And you're probably going to get a 1 or 2 word answer, something like rest, move, etc. What do you need right now? And if it's something you can honor, go ahead. If not, jot it down and know that you'll honor it after we get done with this session. Now, ask your mind, what do you need right now? What do you need right now? Again, the guidance is usually pretty simple and straightforward. It's usually a word or phrase. If you start getting this whole long explanation, that's probably the trained brain trying to drop in with something it studied last year or something. So, go back to, yeah, but what do you need right now? And then ask your wiser self, what do you need right now? And just see what it responds or how it responds. Okay, thank your 3 selves and jot down what it was that you received in terms of Earth Elemental, Talking Self, and Wiser Self guidance. Now, we have a couple other what can I say, senses that we're not going to speed date today. We don't have time, but I'm just going to mention them. We have our animal instincts. Those are the aversion, attraction stuff I talked about earlier. We have our attention being drawn to something or to notice something. What lights up? Often if I want to know what's going on, where something is happening, I picture a map and say, well, what lights up for me? Where is this on the map? And we also have the ability to perceive shifts in energy or shifts in pattern. So you all know how to do this. And you're in a room and the mood shifts. Most of us feel that. Or you're looking at a crowd and you notice there's a shift in the pattern of how the crowd is moving. That's another way we use that particular perception. So you can play with those on your own time. Because I think that as we work with the instrument of receptivity, of receiving and perceiving and reading energies, we get more and more skilled at understanding what they're saying to us, what the vocabulary is that is unique to each of us. And we do have to develop our own vocabulary from the ground up. We don't just memorize someone else's because it doesn't work the same way for our instrument. And so, it's a practice, not a task of memorization. And over time, you'll find you're also able to read other people's energies. So I want to bring up an ethical issue, which is that you have permission to read your own energies. If you want to read someone else's, you need to ask explicit permission. You can't just say, oh, their wiser self told me I could look in and see how they're doing with their boyfriend. That's like pulling out someone's clothes to see what underwear they're wearing. It's really an invasion of their privacy. Now, it is true that people broadcast all the time, so you're going to be picking up stuff that they're sending. But to actually go looking for truth using your evolving psychic or energetic abilities to read energy, it requires us to have a good ethical practice. So I want to just plant that seed in you. I mean, if someone's in a coma, and I'm called in to heal, I will get permission from the person who has their the right to oversee their healing. But if they're not in a coma, I ask them. Even if someone comes for a session for a healing, I say, okay, if we get started and I work with your energies, just because if we don't get permission, they may pick up that they're being read and go into reactivity, and it can actually cause a lot of disruption. We cannot override their will without causing some problems for them and for our own selves. So just keep that in mind as you explore this. Okay, so I hope you're getting the sense that the language of energy is really multidimensional, just like sign language. This is fake sign language here. Just like sign language is kind of more three-dimensional than just talk. The language of energy uses all of what we know. And so it's a really rich, amazing language to work with. And sometimes if I want to talk to myself, I don't just use words because that's just such a small spectrum of my ability to communicate. The expressive language part of the language of energy uses the things that we explored pretty much. It uses touch. You know, how often is a child upset and you hug them? Or you sing or sound, so you sing a song to them or a lullaby, or you use a rhythm. People are all over the place, and you start a rhythm to get them on the same page. So you can use touch, sound, rhythm, color. You've heard of color healing or light healing. You can use imagery and visualization. You can use shapes. You can put containers. You can use movement. How often do you feel like crap and you get up and do a little dance and stretch and stuff and whatnot, and you feel different. You change the dynamics, which is part of healing, changing the dynamics. You can use gesture. You notice I talk a lot with my hands. You can use tastes, bring a food in that shifts the mood. I mean, those of us who are overeaters, food really changes energy really well. A certain flavor will just like calm me right down. Same with scents. Those of people who have played with aromatherapy know that. And you can use your animal instincts, bring in an emotion, flood yourself in gratitude, or bring in direct knowing, pattern recognition. Look, where's the pattern? Where the changes, consciously using those to shift a pattern, to send out your radar as a communication, to send out your knowing through telepathy. So that's the communication side. We don't have time to do a lot of exploration of that today because I want to go somewhere else. But first, take a moment to just stretch. Stretch, 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 stretch. Maybe tap or massage parts of your body to get energies moving. Shift around and try to reset your balance as you're sitting in the chair, or even stand up and change your balance for a minute. Drink some water to rehydrate. All of these are part of energy communication. It's about retuning the instrument, right? It's about resetting our energies. So where I want to go with this now is to shift gears a little bit to talk about some basics of how to use energy or using energy to communicate with your body, particularly as it relates to change. Because remember, we're all being slammed by change. So how can I use this energy communication stuff to deal with either what's changing in me or what got knocked off balance by change, or to even start changing the dynamics in the stories I'm writing with the world. Okay, and I really believe that we use energy to take care of the instrument and to rebalance it. But we also need to know, if I'm going to teach you guitar, one of the first things I'm going to teach you is how to tune the instrument, right? Because if you're playing your instrument and it goes out of tune, your songs aren't going to sound very good. And yet, how many of us play our lives on an instrument that's gone badly out of tune? And we keep going and we keep going and we keep going. We don't stop and retune the instrument. We don't know how to. And if we want to play a different song, we have to retune it to another key. How many of us know how to shift our bodies or shift our energies to a different key so we can live a different rhythm or a different way? And I think this is a skill set that everybody needs to have in these times of change. We need to help our bodies to evolve with all the change. And that means being able to get it back in tune or tune it to another key, or recognize that we are conscious participants in the energy dynamics that create this body, mind, spirit, or spirit, mind, body being that we are. So we're going to go into some different aspects of that. The first one is what I call explore and learn. And why is that relevant? I mean, that sounds like, oh yeah, right. But how often do we in our culture just jump to wanting to know right answers. Something's wrong. What's the answer? How can I fix it? And we just love right answers. And in fact, I need to know something. What do? I go and Google it because I want to know. But that tells me what someone else figured out. And there's a lot of garbage out there that isn't true, that's presented as truth. So if I'm always reaching for the right answer, I'm not able to be comfortable with not knowing. And sometimes when we're changing, energies are shifting and they need time to shift into new forms and new configurations. And we panic because we don't have the old configuration. We've lost the security of what we thought was kind of a more fixed universe. And we don't know where we are. We don't know where we're going. We don't know how to get our bearings. So learning to explore, saying, I don't know. It's okay. This means I get to explore and learn and I can be comfortable with not knowing right now. You know, when the moon goes dark, we've learned not to panic. It's going to come back. You know, when it gets dark at night, we know the sun's coming up the next day. We've learned enough from nature that there is that place where we don't know, where we're in darkness, where things haven't taken form yet. And so, the attitude to cultivate in that is exploration. And if we don't, then we're just taking in other people's answers rather than having authentic dialogue with ourselves to find it out. And too often, spiritual teachers say, okay, you want to feel good with change. Well, here's your 6-point plan. You're going to do this, 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 you're going to do this. Here's your steps. Here's your exercises. They're 5,000 years old, so they're going to work for you. Maybe, or maybe not. Those of you who've tried yoga and failed, I'm like a flunky of yoga classes, and I love yoga, but it doesn't love me as much. I took beginning Tai Chi 3 times and loved it, but I never wanted to be more than a beginning Tai Chi person. It wasn't quite my language. Yet I know people who are that's their truth. That's their modality. So understand this is about discovery. Let's try something. I'd like you to find some kind of owie. Now, an owie is something that causes you either pain or discomfort, something where it isn't right. And you can look for an owie that's in your body or in your emotional life, like maybe you're having some grief, or even in your lifestyle, like, oh, my job's not fitting me anymore. Okay, so think of an owie. And if you can, put your hand on it. If it's something in your body, put your hand on it. If it's in like an emotion, you can still put your hand somewhere. And if it's in your lifestyle, maybe just put it on the table in front of you or something. The image of the thing you're dealing with, and ask it what's needed. What's needed, oh owie? Tell me, what do you need? Now, remember, you can explore like we did with speed dating. You can see what you see, hear, feel, etc. What do you know? What do you need? What do you need, oh owie? Now, if you find yourself looking for the whole answer, like I want to know the whole truth, I want to know what causes this, you're trying to encompass too much. Just in this moment, what's one thing you need, my owie? And then if you can, respond energetically. If I talk English to my owie, say I've got, I've got some iron, too much iron in my blood. I'm going to go over here. I've got too much iron in my blood. So I'm going to ask it what it needs. And what it says is I need some moments of silence. Okay? Okay, I just gave it a moment of silence. If I were alone, I would give it maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes of silence. Just see what happened. What happened? So you want to respond energetically, not just with words, not just with talk. Maybe you're going to touch it and use touch to respond, like you would a child who's upset. Maybe you're going to do a gesture like, okay, silence. Maybe you perceived a color or shape and you want to transform, it was a bright red and you'd like to kind of transform it into a nicer purple color, for example. You bring in a little blue and transform it, or a shape that needs to be softened or modified. Or maybe it was a sound and you want to give a rhythm to it. Okay, that's what you can do with this stuff. You don't always have to store it into your comprehending brain and interpret it. That can come a little later. Just learn to dialogue with it. I call that energy dialogue. Okay, explore and learn and dialogue. That's a basic. Okay, so another basic that I think most of you will recognize is working with your reactivity. Now, in this era, most of us have been reactive a lot. I find myself kind of grumpy or a little bristly at times, and we're seeing people around us like blow up over nothing. Because change makes us feel insecure, we get reactive. I think I mentioned, or if I didn't, I'll mention now that we have this mechanism in our energies that I call the gatekeeper. That's what my teachers called it. Donna Eden refers to it as the triple warmer energy system. But it's the part of you that keeps the gates of self. It says, this can come in, this has to stay out. This is mine, this is not mine. This is safe, this is not safe, right? It's that mechanism that maintains you in this form, in this life, so we don't float off and be just pure spirit. That's your gatekeeper. It's like it's your immune system, but it works on all levels, not just physical. It's emotional, mental, spiritual, energetic immune system. It's good to know your gatekeeper. And when the gatekeeper reacts, one of the things that happens is it starts to send energy to the shields. Now, you know how, like in Star Trek, if you know Star Trek, there's this Enterprise, the ship Enterprise is traveling through space, and they have these enemies called Klingons. And so when they perceive that Klingons are in the area, they put more energy into the shields. And what that does is it repels the Klingons. But when that much energy goes into the shields, the ship goes on brownout. They can't use their replicators, and the lights are dimmer, and they don't have the good heating cooling system they had before because so much energy is going into the shields. And that happens when we go into reactivity. We put energy into our shields, and the body is a little on brownout. We don't digest food very well. We don't circulate things very well. The healing, our ability to heal injury goes way, way down. So it's good to take ourselves out of red alert. If you walk around on red alert, you're not going to have the energy you need to operate the body. And instead, you're going to be fighting Klingons that may or may not be there. So I'm going to show you an exercise that helps you take yourself out of red alert and turn off the excess energy to your shields. And it's called the porcupine reset. And it's called this because when people are in reactivity and I'm looking at their energies, they look like big porcupines. I see all this energy like spikes going out to reinforce the shields. Okay, so I'm going to get up and show you how to do this, and I'm going to invite you to do it with me. Okay. So I'm going to demonstrate this twice. You can either just watch once and do it once or do it along with me. It's pretty simple. You're just going to grab energy at the top of your head. Just grab, breathe in and pull up. Breathe out and bring it down in a bow shape, like an arc. And you're going to tack that energy to the ground. Then you're going to grab the other end. You're going to inhale and bring it back up in a bow shape. And exhale as you tack it back to the top of your head. Let's do that one more time. Breathe in and pull up. Grab the energy, breathe in and pull up. Exhale. Grab the other end, pull it. Inhale, bring it up. Exhale, tack it to the top of your head. And tune in. What does that feel like? Does it feel like you've turned off that energy to the shields? Now, sometimes that's the outer porcupine. We also have an inner porcupine where we're all grumpy and disgruntled or shut down, where we're trying to protect the sanctity of our heart, and we just, we feel yucky inside like that. So we're going to reset that. It anchors at the third eye, and we're going to do the same exercise. You're going to grab the energy, but at the third eye, you're going to breathe in and pull it up. You're going to breathe out and pull it down, 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 and tack it to the ground. Grab the other end, pull it out as you inhale, out and up, and tack it back at the third eye. We'll do it one more time. Third eye, breathe in and pull up. Breathe out and take it back down to the ground. Grab the other end, pull out, bring it to your third eye. And then tune in. What do you feel like inside yourself? I hope some of you really felt a difference. You can do that as often as you want. It builds resilience. It helps your reactivity to remember to turn off the energy to the shields when the Klingons move on, because our life is full of moments where we're faced with a message that the Klingons coming, and often it's a false alarm, and we don't want to go through life with our alarm running and driving us crazy. So a third aspect of working with change that we need to kind of get a skill set around is how to adjust your nervous system. And, this is something where too often, we want to take a pill to calm ourselves down, or we just don't know what to do when we're overwrought. Change affects the nervous system. It brings the blood pressure up. It changes the temperature and affects our ability to regulate the temperature. We sometimes have spurts of energy, or our energy just crashes. It is still part of your gatekeeper, but the nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system do a lot of regulating. And if it gets dysregulated, then, and we don't know what to do about it, then we walk around being jangled and disorganized. So I'm going to teach you a little exercise that you can do to just readjust your nervous system overall. It'll help with all of the things I mentioned, and it's called coming home. So you're going to put one hand on your heart and one hand on your solar plexus, and then you can't see it here, but you're going to cross your ankles, okay? Cross one ankle over the other. It doesn't matter which way. And then you're going to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth in a pattern of breathe in for a count of 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then out on a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now, some of you will be more comfortable with 4, 6, or 5, 7, or something. The point is you want to breathe out longer than you breathed in. That style of breathing actually adjusts your vagus nerve, which is the communication highway that tells all your different organs how to function and how to regulate. It's part of your parasympathetic nervous system. And holding here and here calms your gatekeeper, and crossing your ankles gets your left and right brain crossing over and talking to each other again, because often when we are made uncomfortable, we start spinning our wheels. We go what's called homolateral, and we stop crossing our energies over and cooperating left to right. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with this exercise for readjusting your nervous system. Another aspect that I think it's fruitful for you to think about for your own life is how well are you able to adjust your pacing, the pace of how you live. Like on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is pretty comatose and 10 is like really, really active, where do you normally live your life? Now, it used to be before the pandemic, people would answer 7 or 8. Most people I met, they lived their life at 7 or 8. Well, normal or average is 5 or 6, and healing speed is 3. But it's different for each person what they're comfortable with. Some people really need to have a higher pace. Some people really need a slower pace. I have a lot of what's called earth element in me. I like slower pacing. But I have some fire which likes to go a little faster, okay? So what I'd like you to do is, using just your hands to clap, I'd like you to clap the rhythm you feel you're living now, the overall rhythm or pace of your life. Is it slow or is it fast? But just clap it. And I'm going to clap 2 or 3 times, but then I'm going to stop so you can hear your own rhythm. So what would you say is the rhythm you're living now? Let yourself hear it and feel it in your body through the clapping. Now, think for a moment or put your hand on your heart and ask yourself, what do I think would be the healthiest pace for me right now, these days, this week, today? What would be the healthiest pace? And clap that pace. Now, it may be the same thing you just clapped, but it may be significantly slower or faster than what you just clapped. Okay, and I'm not clapping, so I don't override your clapping. Now, if you want to get up, you can use your breath and walking and clapping. So you can walk and breathe and clap that rhythm so that you can center that pace in your body. I'm going to show you just quickly. And you can walk just randomly, you can walk in a shape, you can walk a spiral. But what that does is it grounds that desired pace into your body, into the instrument. It resets the pacing and sort of how your accelerator works when you need to go faster or slower. It puts it in the middle of where it needs to be. Okay, so another dimension of using energy work to work with change is to have ways to understand more about where am I right now? What's my state? Where am I energetically? Some of you probably use like the I Ching or the runes or the tarot or some divination tool to just take a sounding of where am I right now in the cycle of energies? And some of you don't. And it's a wonderful habit to get into to sort of ask that question about, well, am I too tight or too loose? Am I really open or am I too closed down? Where am I in sort of the range of possible energy states? And in addition to using a divination tool, if you want, I have a little exercise to teach you that I call fishing in the chakras. That's really fun and helpful in just getting insights into your state. Now, chakras, most of you probably have heard of chakras. Chakras are spinning discs of energy. They're like little tornadoes. They bring energy into the body, they carry it out, and they do a whole lot of stuff. And different systems have different chakras, but in general, the 7 that most systems use, there's one at the base of your torso. It's called the first chakra. The second chakra is halfway between your belly button and your pubis. The third chakra is at your solar plexus. You can see that one. The fourth chakra is at the heart. The fifth chakra is at the throat, the sixth is at the third eye, and the seventh is at the top of the head. And you don't need to memorize that if it's new to you, because we're going to just work with the 3 middle ones right now. You can fish in any chakra you want, but we're going to do an exercise just with these 3. And chakras, in addition to carrying information in and out, they bathe the area of the body where they sit. They bathe those organs and bring energy to the organs. So the throat chakra energizes the thyroid and the energies here, the heart chakra, heart, lungs, everything that sits here, etc. So when you've got an issue with any of those organs, it's good to go fishing in that chakra to get some information. They also sort of influence and regulate the hormones in each area of the body where they sit. So again, I said energy underlies chemistry. The hormones are the chemical messengers of the body, but the chakra energies can regulate those. So you can do like years and years of study, and I'm going to do 3 minutes of chakra work. So I just wanted to introduce that background of what we're doing when we go fishing in the chakras. So y'all know what fishing is, right? Now, if you don't like the idea of a hook and a worm, I use a little magnet on my fishing line. I've got a little magnet because I don't like the idea of killing worms. But we're going to go fishing in either the heart chakra, which is all about connection and and feelings and everything in this part of the body. Or you can go fishing. You're choosing your fishing hole right now. You can go fishing in the third chakra at the solar plexus, which is a lot about how we cope with the world, but it's also how we create identity, a lot about that talking self storyline stuff of creating the storyline. A lot of that registers here in the solar plexus. And or you can go to the fishing hole that is your second chakra, which is halfway between your belly button and your pubis. And that second chakra has a lot to do with your authentic self. I know it in my gut. I just have that authenticity down here of who I am. So we're going to ask for insight into something. Give me insight into something, or just into my state, because we're doing this for insight into the state. So where am I right now? Give me insight. So I'm going to go to my third chakra, my solar plexus, and I'm just going to throw in my fishing line. It's got a little magnet on it. And sometimes the fish take a little while to bite, but I'm just going to fish until I feel it catch something. And I'm going to pull it out. And what I got was not a fish. I'm just going to tell you quickly. I don't want to interrupt yours, but I got a shoebox that has brand new shoes in it. And they're even wrapped in beautiful kind of reddish paper. And I'm thinking, oh, cool, new shoes. And what I feel I want to do with those shoes is I want to put them on. I'm just going to put them on and see how it feels to put those shoes on. I don't know what they mean. My brain hasn't caught up yet, but I'm interacting with this energetic message, which is an image, which is an object, which is a visualization, whatever. And I'm going to put them on my feet and see how that feels. So again, if you're still fishing, or if you pulled something up, pull it up. Take a look at it, whether you understand it or not. Just interact with it a little. Unpack. Well, what do I associate with this thing? Do I have any associations? What's it telling me about my state? What's its state? My shoes were shiny, brand new. What's the state of whatever you pulled out? If you pulled out nothing, investigate your nothingness. You pulled out a big chunk of nothing. What does that say to you? Okay, we don't have to be heavy. This isn't about getting the answer to your whole life. Often we get insights into our state with we take soundings. And these little soundings give us glimmers. They're like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. And we have to get enough pieces of that puzzle so that we can start to put them together and see what image is forming. And too often we got 3 pieces and we're frantic because we don't know what it all means. It's like, no, you don't know what it means. Keep fishing. So that's what I'm going to invite you to do over the next while is fish in your chakras. And you can fish in all 7 of them, wherever you want to go, whatever your instinct tells you is your fishing hole today. And then just jot down what you get. And then maybe once a week, look at the conglomerate of messages and insights to see what they tell you. Okay? We're coming near the end. This is the last dimension that I want to talk about in energy work that supports change. And this is about opening to new perspective. It's learning how to transcend the trained brain. We are with the explosion of the internet and social media and 24/7 news, we are inundated, we're flooded with communications, with information, with messaging, and a lot of it is wrong. It's just downright false. It's incorrect information, but even correct information can really flood our engine if it's too much, if it's not what we need in a moment. And I don't know about you, I've been walking around in a very flooded state. I've been watching the news. I've been, getting too much. Every time I pick up my phone, there's messages from all these people. And, I have communication poisoning, too much coming in, not enough time to really hear what my inner truth is. So what I'd like to invite you to do, we're going to do an exercise that helps with shifting perspective. And I call it traveling brain. We're going to think for a moment about something that you've been obsessing about or thinking a lot about, or that's been in your mind. It could be a political situation. It could be a relationship issue. It could be something with your health or body, but something that you're just like, you think, and maybe you're even stuck, like you're going in circles and you just can't get out of whatever the understanding is. You're kind of stuck in this storyline. Okay, so bring it up. Now, what we're going to do is, and it's really good if you're using something that triggers you, where you get stuck or you get triggered, because, the messier it is, the more benefit you're going to get from this. We're going to do kind of like what happened in Harry Potter, when Dumbledore uses his wand and pulls a thought out of Harry's head and puts it in the pensieve. And if you haven't read Harry Potter, it's wonderful. Go read it. But what you're going to do is we're going to take these thoughts and we're going to physically use our hands and we're going to grab these thoughts, pull them out of your head. You can even breathe in and pull it out on the exhale. Breathe in and place all those thoughts in your heart. So now your brain is in your heart. Your heart is your brain. And just take a moment to notice what happens to all that thinking, that whole situation, when it takes up resonance here in your heart. Okay. Now we're going to take those same thoughts, we're going to pull them out again, and we're going to put them down in the gut. I know it in my gut, right? There's another brain down there. So what happens if this is your brain? Just tune in to what's happening to that issue of those thoughts. If it's too quick for you, you can always come back. And just tune in, see what comes. And now you're going to pull it out of your gut and you're going to put it down into your feet. So I put it into each foot. Yeah, both feet. So that now your brain is in your feet. And if you want, you can get up and walk around and feel what happens to those thoughts, those feelings, when they're in resonance in your feet. How does it shift what you know about them? Don't go up to your head to interpret. Just feel what you're learning and knowing by being in your feet. Okay, and now if you want, if you want to leave them in your feet, you can. That's always a good way to really ground your thinking. But you can also pull it out of your feet and either put it back where you think it really belongs. Maybe it goes back in the heart, or you may want to hand it over to your guides or your wiser self to hold for you or put into offsite storage for you. Or you may want to just put it into the universal recycling bin and say, well, that was just garbage thinking I didn't even need. And give it back to the universe. Maybe someone else needs it. Okay. That's called traveling brain. We've just been on a whirlwind tour of the language of energy. I hope I didn't overwhelm you, but I know it's recorded, so for a lot of you, you can come back and visit parts of it. I want to mention that you can find out more about what I've been teaching today. I have a book out called The Language Your Body Speaks. I have another book out called Your Body Will Show You the Way, and some other books as well. So the best way to sort of check into my work and get a little more familiar with it is to go to my website, ellenmeredith.com, and that's ELLENMEREDITH.com. And it's a jumping off place to all the different kinds of work I do. I've got lots and lots of freebies, including a do-it-yourself divination tool. So I hope you'll go there and have some fun playing. And I hope you'll play with all this stuff and make it yours. I mean, this isn't rules for how to be. This is really trying to open your eyes to the language. And each of us is a poet in our own right, and we have our own stories to tell and our own ways of expressing. And I hope that you will be able to use some of these tools to click into that and really find ways to participate in your own body, mind, and spirit conversations.